Hey.
And we're live on YouTube now.
Hello! Welcome everyone to the Eden Ideal podcast. I expected that to carry on going.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
We need to get a proper jingle. Anyways, welcome to the conversation.
The
On
Eden
today's
Ideal.
conversation, we are going to be talking about... We're actually going to be talking about suffering and hardship. And then we're going to flip it over and ask the question, have we made... Yes. I forgot to turn down my phone.
I'm sure we
Start
said
that
prior.
again. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Eden Ideal podcast.
This guy.
But yeah, no, today we are really going to be talking. I think this is so important what we're talking about today. Like, I'm actually really excited for the conversation. Going to be asking some fundamental. We're in a series right now where we're exploring some fundamentals around Christianity 101. It's kind of like, you know, the heartbeat behind what we do, why we do what we do here. So through all these conversations, hopefully they give an insight into why we are doing what we're doing here. So yeah, without further ado, I want to introduce myself. I'm Tolu, your host today.
I'm Bim. Hi, guys.
And I'm Tade. Hello.
And
I'm
behind
Dwayne behind the mic.
Yes.
behind the
Go.
camera. We always get this wrong. We always get this wrong. We're all behind mics, man. Anyways, Rachel's still not with us today, but still in our prayers, darling, wherever you are. Am I allowed to call another woman, darling?
At home.
Okay.
Very patronising.
Why are you
that sound
saying it like
patronizing?
that?
Why does that have to
Sounded
be
weird.
patronizing?
Why are you saying it
No.
like that?
We need to, we're not gonna deviate.
Sorry,
We're not gonna
sorry.
deviate today.
Sorry, my bad.
That was actually so funny.
Sorry, Rachel. I can't give a
No,
term of
do you know what?
endearment anymore.
Knock yourself out. Do what you want to do.
Anyways, let's get into it, guys. Let's not waste any time. Oh, anyone kind of joining us online on Instagram, on YouTube?
Yes.
Like last week was really great in terms of like the comments, the contributions, the feedback. So please, guys, get involved. Say who you are, like on the chat as well, so we know who we're talking to, and you know we could probably address you by name. So yeah, let's do this, guys. So before we go into like the conversation, kind of is modern Christianity too easy? I wanted to kind of understand your baseline attitudes towards hardship and suffering in general. Like, what's your don't think too deeply about this. What's your feeling about hardship?
Soft life.
Soft life. Forever.
I'm checking out.
That's the opposite.
No, but it's true though. But that's it. No. People tend not to want hardship.
Yes. Hardship, just in the plain question that you asked, hardship is like going through just, things are just hard, things are just tough, you know, just trying to kind of like catch up with yourself, and every turn in, things just don't seem to be clicking. That's like hardship in one way, hardship of like, you know, in work. You might just be hard during work and stuff. You know, maybe you have a job that is just like, you just feel like you're facing hardship at that job. Like, you know, maybe in your country, there's hardship going on there. You know, I know that a lot of people who are from the country that I'm from, who live there, they would describe that they're going through hardship. The country that I'm from is Nigeria, if you don't already know that. People there would say, it's hardship, you know? So that's, I guess, what hardship is.
Yeah. Just general dis-ease, I guess.
Yeah.
And you being at a disadvantage, or you being inconvenienced, or like a struggle, a tension that you're experiencing, and it doesn't seem to be letting up. I would define that as hardship.
But like in terms of your personal, like, do you guys try and run away from hardship?
Sometimes, because it doesn't feel nice.
That's all.
It doesn't feel nice, and you know, let's all face it, you just like an easy soft life, like you said,
Nice,
you know,
soft
but so
life.
yeah, sometimes you do want to run away from it, but sometimes it's necessary for you to go through that hardship,
That's
because
it.
some of the lessons learned you wouldn't have learned had you not gone through the
Yeah.
hardship.
Yeah.
This is it. Because
Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
most successful people in this world know that that's the wrong mindset, to run away from hardship. Like, if you want to excel at anything in this world, you need to be willing to embrace
Yeah.
hardship and struggle. Literally, if you actually want to be excel at anything, like think anything that you can think of, like if you want to lose weight, if you want to learn a new instrument, if you want to anything you want to do well, you need to be willing to embrace hardship. But like I think, gone no.
I was gonna say, do you think there's spectrums of hardship?
Perfect. No. I think because I think we should talk about the spectrums because I was actually looking at it and in simplified, I think there's like 4 levels of difficulty. So, but like it's really, really kind of critical to how we understand learning and what that means. So, if your base level easy, very easy, like if you're doing something that's very easy, there's no opposition, you'll probably dominate at that thing. Let's imagine like you're doing a sport and you find it so easy, it'll eventually become boring. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to, it's not going to drive you forward in any kind of way. If something is now moderate, so if you're playing against a competition against someone who's fairly kind of similar to you, like you'll enjoy that more because maybe you'll lose some, you'll win some, but you won't actually learn anything new. Like it might be more engaging to a degree, but it's not, you wouldn't learn anything new because your current skill level, your current comfort
not being
zone is not
challenged.
being challenged.
Yeah.
So that's level 2. So level 1 is easy. Level 2 is moderate. Level 3, if we call that hard, that's when it's just beyond your skill level and you're kind of chasing something. This is the zone. This is the sweet spot for actual learning. I was listening to a TED talk and the guy was saying like whenever like elite athletes or, you know, they always try and find someone to play with that is slightly better than them so that they can, that's the thing that pushes you to, you know, try different things, or they give themselves a handicap so that they can, like you literally, your brain creates new neural pathways to fix the problem, you know? So you need that. Otherwise you physically will not learn anything new. You need a challenge. So if anything you want to do in this life, if you actually want to grow, if you want to excel, if you want to go beyond, if you want to innovate, you actually need to embrace that feeling that we're all trying to run away from. Like at work, if you want to actually excel in what you're doing, you need to be willing to stretch yourself, put yourself in uncomfortable positions, you know, challenge yourself, you know, go and do the things that you might not typically be comfortable doing, because that's the thing that will get you noticed. That's the thing that will get you to the next level. Do you know what I'm saying? Me right now, I'm trying to lose weight. I need to be willing to go through a hardship in order to get the benefit. So I've just been really thinking about like the mentality, but that's not where it stops in that spectrum. That's hard. There is a spectrum beyond that, which it becomes like very hard. And even in the same analogy, like when it becomes too hard and it just seems hopeless, like that has the opposite effect. Because you feel demotivated. That's when you start to feel like there's no point, you know, because like you're trying your hardest, but you can't actually get any headway. So I think that is what people typically think of as suffering.
Is because you know when we're saying hardship, do you think that the word hardship is the word for those first initial things that we were talking about? I'm not sure if that's what hardship.
So maybe we were talking about level 4.
Interchanging the word hardship for another word, maybe.
Why do you think not?
I don't know if because I was just looking at the definition of hardship as well. Because even as you were saying it, I thought, is that what hardship is? And then I thought, let me just look at the definition to see if those other examples that we've even said, even myself, is that what hardship is? Because as we're saying it, I'm thinking that's not hardship though. That's not hardship though. Like hardship just seems hardship? Very like the first initial things, even just like losing weight or some, you know, just some of the first things that we said, right? Some of the level 1 examples that you gave, are those hardship?
No.
Hardship is classed as severe suffering or privation. Is that how you pronounce that word? Privation. Severe suffering.
What's
It's not
privation?
really. I don't really know.
But
We'll have to
so I
do
think-
another one for that one.
I think
severe suffering, Sha.
so.
I don't know if
I think it is a spectrum. From like let's keep these levels in our minds because they're gonna come back to them. So that description sounds like the level 4 that we've just described.
But that's what the description of hardship is.
Okay, forget the word. Let's just accept that there's a spectrum of difficulty. But what I'm trying to say is definitely you want to be on the right side of that spectrum. You don't want to be like, if you're on the left side, if your life is easy all the time, if everything's just easy, that's not a good place to be. That's not actually desirable. Like you
I mean,
will
it
not
probably
make.
is desirable for people who are really going through hardship, though, isn't
No,
it?
but what I'm saying is, you don't want, if you're in level 4 suffering, you don't want to be in level 1. You might want to go to level 2 or level 3. But what I'm saying, like, obviously you want to. What I'm saying is that's not the best answer for you. That's not the thing that will give. That's not sustainable. That's not gonna keep you going. You know, of course, level 4 is not a place that anybody wants to be, and that's where we're all trying to escape. But like you said, I think a lot of us, we are making level 3 type things out to be like level 4.
Can we get an example of level 3?
So when something's just hard, like hard is you can apply yourself. You can really what it's uncomfortable, it's difficult, but it's possible. You can do it. But when it's level 4, it's insurmountable. Like
You
even
can't
if
deal
you
with
try, even if you try, you can't actually, like if we take life in general, let's broaden it out because that's kind of what we're talking about. In life in general, there are some things that you go through where you feel like if I work hard at this thing, I can get to the end. But there are some things like you've been working hard, you don't have any control. Like if an earthquake hits you, there's nothing really you could do about that, right? That's like, that's sorrow. That's, and you just have to kind of deal with it. You need to learn coping mechanisms in those situations. But there are situations where like, okay, you might lose your house. You could really work hard and try and mitigate that. Do you know what I'm saying? There are things that you can work hard at, and then there's some things that are hopeless. That's the distinction for me. But what I'm saying is, everyone, the way we talk, our society right now is trying to push everyone's trying to take easy street. And I'm saying wrong mentality. That's the wrong attitude for us to have. And this is bigger than we think because in so many aspects of life, the world society is giving us the easiest way out. So think about, like we talk about food. Like right now, there's so much access to food, fast food, unhealthy food, sugar. These companies try and make it so easy for you to consume as much. They actually the way they design these foods is so that you will constantly want more and more and more. And they make
And
it
it's
really,
also just a click system.
exactly. They make it so accessible to you. That's the same thing like pornography. It makes, approaching a woman or a man on the street is really hard. Like it takes confidence. You put yourself out there, you risk rejection. It's not easy, but something like pornography gives you an easy way to get the same sensation without having to do the work.
Yeah.
Without having to. So right now, I feel like there's so many things that are decent. Social media. It's a lot harder to go and actually keep and maintain a real friendship, a real relationship. But we're substituting, I have 1,000 followers, I have 1,000 likes on my last picture for, I have friends. Do you know what I'm saying? So everything we're doing, we're going down easy street. And I think it's like a real problem because someone was saying like the biggest issue in our modern society is the fact that we are all just, there's so much distractions and we're just going as zombies because we're just following like the easiest trajectories. No one's challenging themselves anymore. No one's like, we're all kind of going with whatever the latest fad is, whatever the latest thing is. And this is going to be relevant when we start talking about the church, because I think the church is doing the same thing. I think the church is running away from the hard things that it needs to be doing and following the easy path of least resistance, if you know what I mean. So, anyways, that's still kind of broadly speaking. Are we all on the same page? I think that was a bit of a long way to get to like our definitions. Are we all in agreement on what the definitions that we're talking? I think those levels are really helpful for us to. Teddy, you still look confused.
I'm not confused.
Do you have a counterpoint?
No.
Okay, this is the podcast. You're allowed to. That's the point of the podcast. If you have something on your mind, say it.
Nah.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's bring it back to like the Christian context then.
Okay.
So what do we think is the ideal state of humanity, of a Christian?
The ideal
Ideal.
state
Question.
of...
That's a deep question.
No. So
Wanna
in terms
unpack
of
it a bit more.
no, in terms of like these 4 levels that we've talked about of difficulty, what is the ideal state of life that's meant to be? Because when people think about paradise, what do you think of? What level of difficulty do you picture?
None.
In
0.
0.
It's not even on the board.
yes,
Okay.
Not there.
Yeah.
because it is
Non-existent.
paradise.
Okay, so I would like to challenge that.
Why?
Because I don't think that's the picture the Bible paints.
I'm not sure if that's... I don't
Let's-
think...
let's-
Wait. Can
I
we go
don't-
to your first
Oh,
question though?
jeez.
As in
Oh, gee.
what was your first
I
question?
don't
As in
know.
you said something
What's the
about
state of humanity in
What's the...
in
he said,
regards
what's
to the difficulty level?
ideal
the difficulty
state
of being a Christian.
Yeah,
No,
what
we're
you're
getting
saying?
there. We're
he said,
getting
what's
there.
the
We're gonna get
ideal-
there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna
I
get
don't
there.
think that paradise by definition means that there's no hardship there. And
Why
if
do
you're
you say
about to
that?
say that there are, because it is paradise by definition.
No, but that's the
wait,
So
thing.
wait.
in my
Paradise isn't.
paradise, in my mind, it's not anywhere where I would struggle. Why would I be struggling there?
No, but the thing
If
is,
it's
it's
paradise.
not. When you say paradise, is it not just a beautiful place? When I think of paradise,
Mhm.
I see palm trees, beach, sand.
Okay.
I
Yes.
see sunshine every day.
Yeah.
That's what I see. But I still see life there.
Yeah.
It's like I don't have like I see no job. I see no work.
Okay.
That's what I see
Interesting.
when I see
All right.
paradise.
Interesting.
So according to Google, paradise in some religions, heaven as the ultimate abode of the just, the abode of Adam and Eve before the fall in the biblical account of the creation, or an ideal or idyllic place or state.
Yeah. Can I just say, let's never use Google as our. Let's use the Bible as our definition.
Well, I think that
But
the
is that
kingdom
term-
talks about the time where I don't think paradise is paradise the word in the
yeah,
Bible.
Is it in the Bible?
yes,
It
multiple
is?
times.
Okay,
yes.
so with
Oh yeah. you'll
building
be
the
with me in
kingdom,
paradise.
you be with me. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
In like the major part.
So no, but guys, paradise. The thing is, Google is not wrong because paradise is actually Garden of Eden.
Yes.
Eden is paradise. Like
But I believe
the
it will
word-
be
the word-
somewhere where it's filled with love, where
Sure.
there's no.
we're
But
taking
where
back
there's
to other
no-
things.
Back
Let's-
to your
let's-
question.
Let's go back to
Because
the.
It wasn't difficulty. If you think back to like how Adam was living and cultivating the garden, he wasn't. Yes, he had to apply
So let's-
himself
exactly. So let's
and
talk
work
about
it.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't class it
Okay,
as
so-
That wasn't
so-
a
so- so
hard.
let's- no,
yeah, I
didn't-
don't think
I
that he
didn't
felt
say
like
that.
it was hardship.
I asked you, so we've defined 4 levels of
No,
difficulty.
because you asking us like you're gonna trip us up.
No,
in a
no, we've
second.
asked. No. We've
I'm-
talked about 4
I'm
levels of difficulty,
suspecting you,
right? 4 levels of difficulty.
Yeah, but I'm saying, does that
easy,
relate
moderate.
to paradise.
Well, let's talk about
Why
it. That's
do-
the point.
so
Let's
do you
talk
think
about
that
it.
that was hard for?
So let's talk about it. Let's go into the Bible.
I think that
Let's go into the Bible.
with your
Genesis 1.
question,
Let's talk about. Let's go Genesis 1. Like Genesis 1:28. Anyone open it quickly? Genesis 1:28.
All right. Yes, sir.
I feel
Yes,
like you have it in
Pastor
front of
Tolu.
you.
I don't
does.
actually. I don't.
Oh, okay.
Don't.
Genesis 1:28. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground."
So what do you think the word subdue means?
You have to you are in command. You have dominion
No,
over
when,
that
so
thing.
when you subdue something,
mm-hmm.
it's usually. Do you want to Google it? Maybe Google it. Like is
I thought we were not going to use Google.
no, like it's
You literally just said
the
don't
word.
use Google.
I'm just trying to say just like for you to subdue something, it means that you're having to overcome that thing. You're having
Yes.
to tame that thing. So it's not like that thing is just there doing the thing you want it to do.
You're right. You're right.
Yes.
Do you mind reading it?
Overcome, quieten, or bring under control a
Yes.
feeling or person.
Yes.
Bring under control by force.
Bring under control by force. It requires effort. So for us to have to subdue the earth there, that doesn't sound like level 1 type hardship. It doesn't sound like...
I don't like don't call it hardship. Level 1 isn't hardship.
Okay, fine.
So,
level
yeah,
1 of
okay.
difficulty.
Of difficulty.
Level
fine.
1 of difficulty. So it doesn't sound like level 1 of difficulty. It doesn't sound like level 2 of difficulty either to me. It sounds like level 3 at least. At the very least, because you guys, when I asked you that first question, you guys said paradise is no work. I heard you say is no hardship at all. It's easy, it's chilling. At the very least, it's not that. Like, we can agree that, right? At the very least,
I think that
Should-
for
should we
something
read-
to
should
be
we keep
hard for
going?
you,
Genesis
you need
2:15.
But wait, for something
Please
to
find
be
it as she's talking.
for something to be
2:15.
hard for you, and for you to feel like you don't want to do this thing because it is difficult for you, it's you that has to say that you don't want to do that, right? But like, if you're subduing even as much as it may be hard, you welcome that, right? So then that's not then suffering in a way, because you are not claiming that you are suffering, because you are happy to go, because you know that what you're going through is a means to an end, right? So you're not actually suffering, because suffering is not somebody telling you that you're suffering.
I
Suffering
disagree.
is you saying that
No,
you're
because
suffering. Surely.
what you're talking about is how you feel. So even if you are suffering and objectively you are in Nigeria with no money, you are suffering, you can have the right mentality and attitude in your suffering. And the Bible does encourage us to do that. In your suffering, you can still have the attitude and mentality of God's got me.
But
God's-
what if you don't think that you're suffering?
Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, the suffering element of it is objective. Like, the definition we use at the beginning is about your comfort versus, like, your ability versus the challenge that you're facing. So is your ability to face that challenge greater than or less than? If it's greater than, even if you are able to have the right mentality and don't see it as a negative, it doesn't change the fact that you are still gonna have to subdue, overcome, work at it. So that's I don't want us to use the feelings to then cloudy the thing, because you can have the right kind of mentality even in abject suffering. Paul had that mentality. Paul didn't see his difficult. He was in jail, eventually died, but he didn't count it as suffering. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think the mentality definitely a good thing to try and have, but doesn't change the fact that you're suffering, and let's call it what it is. Well, anyways, I don't want to digress. Genesis 2:15. So the story, it started out, we've seen that we need to subdue something. And in terms of the man's vocation,
The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it.
so there's work. Clearly there's work there. So like, for you to be doing work means you have to overcome, you have to take care of something, you have to keep it. Like, I don't know why, but we all have this picture of paradise or Eden where it's just like we're just chilling and walking. No, there's still a God, there's still a
But
forest,
it's not
there's still
difficult,
But
is
it's not
it?
gonna
So-
be the
that's
difficult-
different.
Yeah.
So I'm not
You're
gonna,
gonna
I'm not
be
gonna
there.
disagree. I'm not gonna disagree that I just want to say it's not level 1. Can we at least agree?
No, but
Whatever we're talking about,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not level 1.
Yeah,
Because
there's
level 1 isn't
Moderate
even,
level of
not if I think, not if I am happy to be doing it.
No,
It's not gonna really. Is it gonna take effort?
Tell you,
Yes,
I
but it's
can
not gonna
be-
make me feel like.
So you can be happy in level. I'm not trying to like ignore your feelings and how you feel about that mentality is the right mentality. I actually think personally we should be happy to be in level 3. I actually think we should be running towards level 3 in life. Like, if you want to actually be successful, like I said, all the successful people know that actually being disciplined. And I actually don't, I'm not even just saying this, I think biblically, because when we actually start talking about the Bible and the disciplines in the Bible, and God saying, count it as joy when God disciplines you, you start to see that he wants you to have that attitude. But you don't need to be on easy street for you to have that attitude. You should have that attitude even when you are in level 3 difficulty, hardship. Like, let's use the actual words. Even, dare I say, suffering. You're meant to still have that attitude of seeing it as a joy and everything. But anyways, I do want us to agree, though, what we think the ideal state is. Because I think when God put us in the garden, when God created humanity, we were like babies, right? We were like, and we were meant to kind of sit at his feet and learn from him how to make this world, spread the garden, how to do that, right? So, of course, he wants us to learn. Like, look at humanity. We are all of human flourishing, all of human kind of, we will not be where we are today if we did not have hardship. If we did not have problems to overcome, we literally would not have advanced. Like, I think about my son, right? Mike has been crawling for like a couple of months now, but Malachi is just catching up. And we used to feel really bad for him. And so we'll see him sometimes, he's trying, he wants to move, and maybe he's reaching for a toy, and he's about to get to the toy. But to encourage him, what I do in the short term is I pull the toy further away. He's crying. He's literally like desperately dragging for the thing. But I know that this moment of hardship will build you up. This moment of hardship, right now you're crying, you're devastated. But I know this is the thing that will help you start to crawl, start to run, start to fly, start to excel. So I'm really trying to challenge us about our mentality around hardship and difficulty. Like, this is how we grow. Anyone who doesn't want to grow, chase after easy life, chase after chill, chase after soft life. But if you really want to, no, but seriously though, because even if you like, and you actually, if we're going to look at, even in the Bible, I think there are very clear examples of when God gave people blessing, and then they started sitting in that blessing, and then they started to move wonky, and then he takes them into the wilderness as a result. Not because I'm throwing you away, but because you need to remember, this is the thing that keeps you on the straight and narrow. This is the thing that keeps you going towards the light. But when you are in easy street, when, like we talked about Abraham and all his descendants, where, God will take them to a place of abundance, like he's promised them, I'm going to send you to a place of abundance. But whenever they go there, there's like a famine happening. And even when they, like, a lot of things going in my head, I can't keep up with myself, Let me not digress. I feel like, Tadio, you don't seem happy. Say the word, say it, vocalize what you're saying.
I'm with you. Like,
okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah?
making sense.
All right, cool. Let's
Making sense.
All right. I hope Tadio will start actually talking in a second. Like, no, but say what you're feeling. Okay.
Combat.
I
All right.
know.
No, but I can see in her eyes, in her face, that she's not fully there. And I wanted, like, I thought that would make it interesting for us to actually talk about it.
I'm listening to you.
All right. Okay. All right. So
I need to get there.
okay. Oh, I mean, no,
before I say anything.
all right. No problem. No
Let
problem,
me not
no
derail
problem.
you.
No problem. Okay. So, we're talking about those levels. We need to acknowledge, so, because if you go into Genesis chapter 3, because I personally think the fact Genesis 1, Genesis 2, it clearly shows that you're at least playing in level 2, level 3 territory in terms of what paradise is meant to be. In terms of that we're not just going to be sitting around on palm trees and stuff. I think that there is actually work to be done. I think that the human state, God created us to flourish, to advance, to innovate, to push forward. And for us to do that, we need challenge. We need something to overcome. That's when human beauty comes out at its best. When we work together as a community, we do good things. Amazing things come out of humans. But we do know that in chapter 3, they sin. Can someone just quickly open chapter 3, verse 16 to 19? They mess up, and as a consequence,
read?
sin. Yeah, just quickly read 16 to 19 quickly.
Then he said to the woman, I will sharpen the pain of your pregnancy, and in pain you will give birth, and you will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. And to the man he said, since you listened to your wife and ate from the tree, whose fruit I commanded you not to eat, the ground is cursed because of you. All your life you will struggle to scratch a living from it. It will grow thorns and thistles for you, though you will eat of its grains. By the sweat of your brow will you have food to eat until you return to the ground from which you were made. For you were made from dust, and to dust you will return.
Perfect. So exactly what we've just read
That was
actually.
NLT version, by the way.
Cool. What we've just read actually chimes exactly with what Grace, I completely agree with you, because you can see that the thing I was describing as level 3 is very different from this, because now we're saying you're actually going to work and the ground's going to, it'll be difficult.
It's not going to be easy.
It's going to be
for
not
you.
easy for you to get the goodness from the ground.
It's not going to be a welcomed.
Exactly. So
task.
I think this starts to be level 4 for me. This is where even when you are striving, working, it's not going the way you want. And kind of the Grace's comment on the chat is, we'll be working from a place of rest. In Revelations 14:13, it's not the same work like now, what we're doing now on earth. And I think she's completely right. Right now, a lot of us, unfortunately, are experiencing just level 4 hardship, difficulty. People are striving, people are hustling. I don't think that that's what God wanted for us. That's the reality that we face right now. That's the thing, a reality a lot of people face in this world. I don't think that that's the ideal. I definitely think that the ideal is level 2, level 3, where you're not just sitting around, you're working, but it's positive, you're feeling built up, you're feeling motivated. So if we actually look at Paul reflecting on this in 1 Corinthians, so I have a lot of Bible verses today. I
No,
hope you
it's
guys
fine.
don't mind. 1 Corinthians 10:13, real quick. This is a famous verse. People should know this one.
1 Corinthians,
Chapter 10, verse 13.
it says, the temptations in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure.
So I think this is the difference. Like, again, because the way I describe the difference between level 3 and level 4 is, level 3 is, it's difficult, but there's a way out. It's difficult, but there's a light at the tunnel if you just keep going. Level 4, it can be hopeless. Level 4, even if you strive and you work, you might not actually get there. But you can clearly see that Paul is reflecting. We ripped that verse horrendously out of context, but like I think we kind of get what it's still saying there, that you'll face things, but God will even allow you to be in those things. He's not saying that, oh, God will stop you from experiencing these things. It's saying God will not allow you to face anything that you can't handle. That sounds like level 3 to me. That sounds like that's the position that God is trying to. God will try and doesn't want us to be in level 4, where it's just hopeless, difficult, suffering, blah blah blah, and that's what he's trying to take away. Because if you then, we don't need to open it, but Revelations 21. I'm glad Grace took us to Revelations. Like, the end point says there'll be no more pain, there'll be no more suffering, no more tears, no more death. That's level 4 territory. That's not where we want to go. But I don't want people to mistake that as, so the good place is then level 1. Do you know what I'm saying? Or level 2, because clearly the way God works with us, I think, is level 3. He will test you. He will push you. Because that's how you become better. That's how we are wired. Like, literally, going gym and stuff. I don't know why I looked at Dwayne when I said that. But
I don't do them things right here.
no, but
bruv.
literally what you're doing when you go to the gym and you're lifting weights is you're tearing up your muscles. Like, you're making micro tears You want that because they grow stronger. But if you go too hard, you could actually rip them apart, and then that's an injury. And that's a difference. Like, it's literally the same activity, but there's a balance, right?
Yeah.
So we need to find the right balance when we're trying to kind of do all of these things. So, anyways, I've kind of taken us round many ways to now come back to the title question: do we think we've made modern Christianity too easy? Thoughts?
Well, I think that like calling yourself a Christian is easy, but being a Christian is not easy, as in today's world. Because as you've got a lot more, as I'll call them, lights flashing in your eyes, basically, and they're distracting you from the path you're meant to be taking, and that's diverting you from the true Christianity walk.
But don't you think that as a community we've accepted that?
But I feel
What do
that
you mean?
Like,
as a
we're
commu-
allowing ourselves to.
No, I don't think so.
I
I
feel
feel
that
like-
no. I think nowadays the community turns a blind eye to certain things. If you get that, they allow certain things to go on, and that takes you off your path.
I get that. But I also think that in addition to what you're saying, because I don't disagree that, yes, those things are facts. People are a lot more accepting of certain things now, you know, as Christians. A lot more things than people were accepting of before. Do you know what I mean? Like, even in this country, before you couldn't divorce and things like that. I don't know. I'm just saying that it was a lot more strict before, right? And as we've gone through the years, things have become easier. But I do think that there's a place for when you are somebody who is a Christian trying to walk that walk and please God. It is difficult. And many times you might even just say, man, it would just be so much easier to just not care. Because you sometimes look at some of the friends that you have who don't have this struggle, and they're just like, they seem is the word there, seem so much more free because they have nothing that is, their conscience isn't pulling them one way or the other, like other than their moral compass, right? Nothing is telling them you should do this, because who are they pleasing but themselves, right? Everything that we do, all the things that we're doing, we're battling against our desires. And as a Christian, we're supposed to try to say no to those desires. Do you see what I'm saying? Like in certain desires in the wrong context. Do you see what I'm saying? So I feel like, as I always say, sin is crouching at your door. As Christians, every time there's something that we need to maybe say no to, that's what's happening. Sin is crouching at our door. Are we going to open that door, or are we going to be strong and, you know, fight against that? And if you are somebody who is trying, that battle is a battle that is constantly happening because you're constantly fighting against the desires of your heart, which there are many. I feel like I'm always struggling against it. It's so much easier to just be like, God, you know, it's long.
So
To ask for forgiveness.
The thing is, you've. Let him come in first.
I wanted to say that I think modern Christianity is easier in the sense that, like you touched on earlier, we're in a day and age where there's a lot more access, a lot more easy access. So for a Christian, if you wanted to pick up your Bible today and read a chapter unhindered, like, you could do that. There's no struggle there. There's no difficulty in obtaining the word of God, in accessing the word of God, in accessing a church. There's a church on every corner, in, you know, being involved in Christian activities. I think there's a lot more
Touch points.
Exactly. A lot more gateways, a lot more
Do you think that's a good thing?
I do think that's a good thing,
think it's a good
because it didn't used to be like that. And I know there are still some areas of the world where you can't even gather with Christians. You can't like proclaim your faith openly.
So, but do you know that in those areas of the world, Christianity is growing, but in our areas of the world where you have that free access, Christianity is
But I
significantly
don't think
on
that
the
those
decline.
two things are. It's
Are
okay
they
for it to be
correlated?
good. It's good that
I
you
get-
have
do you
a
know
lot
what?
of access.
I
That
get
is
what
Yeah.
you're saying.
good in itself, 100%. I
Yeah,
don't think that
that
it
was the
is
point I
not
was
good
making.
to not have
So
that
can I
access.
explain what?
If you want it, you can get it.
So can I
But that's
explain?
good.
So I was watching a video and
You
this.
didn't really let Bim
Oh,
finish
sorry,
her point.
sorry,
though,
sorry,
right?
Bim. sorry. Go on, Bim.
No, just saying like it's easy in that sense, and that's good. Like we should acknowledge how far we've come in terms of, you know, the access that people, if they wanted to, the access that people have to Christ and the Bible and Christianity.
On the flip side, I guess you're gonna say now.
I was gonna say in terms of like personalizing it, like how you walk the walk, how you walk this Christian journey. Perhaps yes, we've made it easy because we don't suffer like the Pauls suffered or like the Stephens of the Bible suffered. Like they were stoned literally because they stood firm in their faith. Paul was imprisoned. He was whipped. He was mocked. Like Jesus himself was like abused. Like that level of suffering, that level of persecution, one could argue because we don't experience that it's much easier for us. Yeah. But I think the way in which Christians nowadays experience persecution is just very different to the Bible times. So, for example, like, you know, someone feeling comfortable with saying that they're a Christian and talking about their faith in the workplace, that might be an area of persecution because everyone in your workplace is like, oh, no, don't talk about that. We don't believe in that. We just want to, you know, live our lives.
Freedom of speech.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
or it might even be offensive to someone if you maybe invited them to your church program or left a leaflet. Like I've actually experienced that with my friend who was a Muslim. She had left a leaflet on everyone's desk and someone got really, really offended. Like, don't invade my space like this. I don't want to hear about your religion in my workplace. That's a form of persecution because in a way you're stifling that person from sharing the gospel, and you're treating them differently because they have done. So it's a different way in which we experience it. Obviously not to the level of being beaten and being imprisoned, although I do acknowledge that still exists in certain parts of the world.
Yeah.
Does it make Christianity easy? I don't know. I don't know if it's as black and white as that because we're in different times.
Okay, so
wait, sorry, I'm so sorry, because I know you want to say something, but I want to say something that is going to be what you were trying to say here as well, which is, I guess, about the easy access of it. It is good that we have easy access of it, but to go to what you were saying about in some of the countries where people don't have that easy access, I think in life, anything that you have to fight for, you usually tend to have more of an appreciation for it.
Yes.
So when you don't have to fight so much for something, it's just so easily accessible, which in itself is good that it's easily accessible because if you want it, you can have it, which is good. But that also, I guess, as what you're saying, as what you're about to say, from the flip side is that it makes people a bit complacent with that state. I don't have to, I have the podcast here that is literally reading the Bible for me every day. It takes another chapter. And I started off by saying, I'm going to listen to this every single day. And after a certain point, I just didn't listen to it anymore. But why? Probably because I know it's there. If I want to go back and listen to it and catch up on the last 30 days, I can do that. If I literally didn't have any other way and this was the only way and it was only available for like one available per day for the next year, you best believe you'd probably listen to it because you just, the access
scarce.
to it is scarce, you know? So I guess on that front, because we're not having to fight so much for it or do too much to have it, we have become a bit more like just we take it for granted. That's what it is. We take it for granted. What was that movie? The Book of Eli. Did you guys watch that movie with Denzel Washington?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. I mean, it's been out for so long, but I guess in that film, he was protecting the Bible, and it was like, well, I don't know if it was the Bible, right? I think it was the Bible.
Yeah, it was the.
In
I'm
my
sure
story,
it was the Bible, but in
I believe it was the Bible.
yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't, then hey ho. But in my story of the film, it was the Bible, and it was super protected. And at that point, there was literally no other. This was the only copy, only hard copy of the Bible. And so many people, literally the whole film was about people just trying to get it, and him running away, trying to keep this thing safe because there was none left. So if we were living in a place where only your one neighbor had the Bible and you had to go to that one neighbor's house to hear the word, you probably would. That is probably why in those areas it's probably growing more, because they don't have that access to that. So when they decide that they want to have the access to it, they really have to work very hard to go and have that access. And when you work that hard, you're less fickle. We're very fickle in the Western world. One day we're talking about the universe. The next day we're posting pictures of Jesus, but saying the universe is helping me. It's like, bro, the universe. I thought it's Jesus. I thought you were just talking about Jesus. Like, you're so easily fluid with what you think, and so yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think you're saying, like, you are saying what I was going to say, but I think I think there is a difference. I wouldn't say it's just access to, like, the Bible or access to churches. I think it's more fundamental. It's, do you have a need? Is there a problem that this Jesus overcomes for you? Because I think in some of the places we've talked about, where their need is very obvious, they're being persecuted by their governments, they're being persecuted by whoever, or you're in economic, your economic situation is super dire. These needs are the things that actually drive them to Jesus, to God. They need to overcome these things. So I don't. So if I flip the question, do we think that there isn't anything for us to overcome in terms of why we need Jesus in the West?
You know that saying of when people leave Nigeria, like halves their prayer points. Have you ever heard people say that before?
No, but I get it.
Some people say once they leave their country. I've heard people who are coming from Nigeria and they say, once they've left Nigeria, their prayer points halved, like literally halved, because all those needs that they had, you just have it here. So all those things, we're just not even.
So that's the thing, because I actually think, and I have uncles and aunties who've said this from a Christian perspective. Actually, they look at the West and they say, you guys need Jesus more than we do.
They do.
They look at our society.
Yeah.
They look at the way and they see more of a need. Like, they see you lot are the ones struggling.
I've heard that too.
You lot are the ones in desperate. And I don't think we see that. We don't realize that. We don't talk about that. We're thinking, because, and that's the problem, because we've got money, because we've got, worst case scenario, you still have electricity. Worst case scenario, you still have access to the Bible. We think we're all good, we're kept. And that's exactly why we get complacent. And the thing is, we need to recognize, like, because we've just said it, humans, it's just a universal thing. The way we learn, the way you value something, the way you cherish something is if you strive for the thing, is if you work for the thing. So I think for me, the answer is yes, we've made it too easy, because people don't even realize that they need anything from Jesus. What we then try and do is really talk to you about hell and make you feel scared about that. And then that's the way so I want to avoid going to hell. So that's the way, that's the main rhetoric that people use to kind of get people scared. But that's not the reason you need Jesus. Like, you need him in your life, in the life that you're living right now. People need to start to recognize that there is a need for him, even if you're a millionaire, even if you have all of these things. Do you know what I'm saying? So I actually think we need to get back to that, because that is the reason why the church is on the decline. It's not just about access, but in other areas, it's increasing because they are actually finding solace in Jesus. They're actually finding that rest that Grace described in Jesus. But here, what does Jesus actually give you here to a lot of people?
It's interesting. That's very interesting.
Direction.
What? How can we? What do we say? Do you know what I mean? Like direction, or someone can say.
Peace of mind,
I think peace is a big one. To be fair.
No, but I think
provision. Like, let's not try and.
But I want to.
You can't
really say
claim
these
the
things.
glory for what you have. It's not down to you, though.
it's not. I'm not.
No, but
It's-
I mean, how do we
we're
say
all-
to somebody who doesn't see the need in? How do we? What are the things that we could say to somebody about? I don't know if I need to ask this question properly.
The unique selling points.
Why you
What are
need
the?
Jesus.
Yeah, why do people need Jesus?
Peace. Like, literally, when I'm going through a storm, I know that Jesus has me. Like, if I didn't have Jesus,
No,
what
but
would I
that's because
do?
you
Go
found him,
insane?
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Anyways.
that's a big thing. Peace.
I think whatever.
I mean,
it
for
will-
me,
You
it's
can't
definitely
source
a
that
thing.
anywhere else.
But would somebody who doesn't? I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
it may resonate
Other-
with
other-
them.
it
If
might-
But
you
I
said
think that the
they don't
peace
have
here
peace.
is different. That the peace that you feel here today is totally different to the peace that someone in the country that had to fight to read the Bible would feel.
Mhm.
So you might feel, okay, cool, I feel okay now. But they feel I've actually got away and God helped me to do that, get away. Do you know what I mean? So there's as you say, out there is a level 4. Here's a level 2, 3.
But I think, guys,
Yeah,
we're only
yeah.
talking like there's different aspects of life. Like I said, there's your economic aspect, there's your political aspect, which is the main things that we think of as suffering. So if you don't have that issue, if you're in a democracy and you have economic prosperity, like people think that they have peace. But what about your relationships with people? What about, your marriage? What about your community? What about like all these other aspects of life? Like what about your heart and the way you relate to other people, the poor in your neighborhood? How about the way you do business? How about like all these other aspects of our lives where I think that we are poor in this country in those aspects.
Yeah.
We are desperately poor in those
Very much so.
like
Very
if
much
we,
so.
if we look at like the elderly, it's a big problem in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many elderly people dying alone. So many people, suicide rates are going up. Like there is suffering still in this country. It just looks different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people are drowning themselves in alcohol to like end their misery. People are taking drugs to run away from their pain and situations. Like there is actual need and pain and suffering level 4 in this country. It just looks like something else.
Yeah.
And because it's not the economic side of what we think, oh, look at those poor people in Africa. Like we think that we're good, but that's the problem. That's the facade. That's why people think that they're cool. It's all honky dory, and we don't kind of enter into that suffering and really help people to open up their hearts and understand your actual need. I don't think it's like one thing for everyone. I think everyone has a different need, a different, people, rich people. Look at all these comedians. Like, it's really weird when a comedian commits suicide. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like your job is to make people laugh, but on the inside you're mad lonely.
But that's what it is.
Yeah. I actually think for me the biggest thing I think is relationship. I think relationship is at risk here.
Is that what we would say to somebody though? I don't know if I'm. Obviously, stop me if this is something that we can maybe speak about later. Maybe it's not for now, but because obviously what you're saying, I'm just like, okay, so then how do we give this to somebody? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do we? Because if we're saying that somebody doesn't, there is a lack of need. There isn't a lack of need, but how do we tell people that you are lacking in this area, or we in this society lacking in this area, and Jesus can
So can I
help you.
can I say why? Can I say what it
Show
is?
people.
What I think the problem is we in the church are lacking in those same areas as well.
We're not really being.
We are
we're
not
not
living it out.
actually showing what it is to be in God's kingdom.
Exactly.
Bible study.
Like
Sorry.
but I think that's the problem. Like I think the church
Yeah.
is equally poor in some of these areas as
You're right.
well. So like what you can't give what you can't, do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yo,
you can't articulate
100%.
what you can't
Well, you're not even
show, what
showing.
you can't, do you know what I'm saying?
Do you know
Like,
what? That's I think that's it. That's what it is. We're not doing that in the church. And so how can we even, 'cause really and truly, how we are is what should be the example enough. In Bible study on Thursday, we talked about, Jesus being king and what it means to be in the kingdom of God and living in the kingdom of God and us being representatives of the kingdom of God and how that looks and how people should be referring to us and how people should see us and know, oh, that's somebody who's in the kingdom. Oh, that's somebody who's in the kingdom. Or, you know what I mean? Like they're from the kingdom. If we were at a level where people could point us out, 100% other people would want to obviously also be a part of the kingdom. Do you know what I mean? Like you would want to, because you're leading by example, right? You're showing people what it is to have that level of integrity, that level of for somebody to trust you that much, like because everything you do is above. What's that saying? Above board. Everything you're doing is above board, and people can trust the fact that if I give this person this, they're 100% going to do it. Or just things like that, because that's the traits of somebody who is from the kingdom. And you're so right. That's what we are lacking, because you can't even tell Christians apart from just other people. You really can't.
and that's,
a lot
and
of the
that's,
time,
and that's
anyway.
the point. Like
We're not set apart.
Even how we fight our battles, like when someone's coming against the church, and like how are we different? How are we doing if we read Matthew 5, Matthew 6, are we living up to Jesus' Sermon on the Mount? Are we treating our enemies the way that we're meant to treat them? Because Jesus said, like, when your enemy does this to you, this is how you should respond. When you read the Beatitudes and it says, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those, like, I don't think we allow ourselves, we don't want to be in those situations. We don't even want to see suffering. We don't want to acknowledge suffering. We don't want to acknowledge, like, you can go to churches and there's homeless people down the road, but the church has kind of shut itself off in that space. As long as we're here, we're doing our thing, we're cool. Like, I'm just saying, like, we need to be, and I think there's 2 or 3 things. There's different aspects to this conversation. As we've been talking, I've been wanting to address different elements. I just want to park the first one. Like, the first one was just around that if you, like Tadio said it perfectly, if you're going to come into something, if you're going to do anything and it costs you nothing, you won't value that thing. So just first and foremost. So I just think if you are entering into Christianity and someone's coming and telling you, oh, just come in, yeah, it's all good, Jesus is there waiting for you, just open up your heart, accept him, all true words. But if that's all you get, if that's all the interaction is, you've not had to do anything for it, I think that's a problem. That's like if that person hasn't like let you really understand the fact that you're carrying a cross, you're about to carry a cross, and then you make the decision, yes, I want to carry this cross. Yes, I am going to strive and work for it. I think that's where we need to be, because that's why I think it's on the decline right now. Who's carrying crosses? What crosses are we carrying for the kingdom right now? Like what crosses are we all carrying right now for the kingdom? And I think that's the second aspect I wanted to talk about, because I think this is where you take it to the next level, because I think Jesus specifically, his example, there's a Bible verse, I can't remember exactly where it was, but you might know it. Or not. You know the one where it says he was rich but he became poor on our behalf, you know. In Isaiah it says he was despised for our iniquities. Jesus had everything. Jesus is rich, all powerful. He had everything, but he became poor. He came into suffering. Jesus Christ was living level 1 life. He's God. He could have been level 1. Do you know what I'm saying? But he saw us in level 4 and he came to meet us in level 4. That's the true calling of Christians. If we are to emulate Jesus, even if I've sorted myself out, I'm in level 2, I'm having an easy life, you are meant to enter into other people's suffering. You're meant to go to the suffering. You don't just sit where you are and say my life's good. As if there isn't suffering around us. Like, that's what you now do. You self-sacrifice. This is why he said to the rich man, you need to give away everything you have and go to the people that need it the most. This is why Paul was chilling with the people then, but he went to Jerusalem because there was a need in Jerusalem. He was raising funds. They told him, Paul, you are going to be arrested in Jerusalem. They're gunning for you. But he still went there, regardless of the situation. I think that's a problem. Like I said, the first question I asked when we started this podcast, like what's our attitude towards hardship? We all try and run away from hardship. We all try and put it away. We literally try and, like, if you were, you know, the thing, like when you were poor, you used to hang out with certain people, you used to do certain things. When you start to make money, you literally start to distance yourself a little bit, even if it's unconsciously. The type of people you surround yourself with changes. It happens to everyone. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you actually don't want to be reminded of your days.
Birthdays.
You know what I'm saying? You actually don't want to be reminded of that. And that's the way human nature is. We try and run away from suffering and pain and all these things. Like, sometimes I start reading the news because I just don't want to be reminded of this stuff every day. But I think that Jesus's example shows us that the attitude of a Christian should be, no, I'm going to sacrifice and enter into that. I'm going to actively seek it out. So there can't be any excuse of, oh, my life is good though. It's not about me. Like, God wants you to have a good life. Great. But then the calling is for you to sacrifice that. And that's the way we build the kingdom. See, that's the thing. You know, one of the classic things that atheists or people who don't believe use to come against God is, but why does he allow so much suffering? Why does he allow so much suffering? Like, how is he, you know, if God is God, if he's loving God, how can
Why they're starving children?
And the problem is, what they don't realize is, he doesn't like that. He doesn't want to lie. He's doing it. He's put a plan in place to remedy the suffering. Just that we don't like it. We don't see it. It's kind of like what we talked about, a Bible study. Because his remedy for the suffering is for people to go and enter into that suffering. Right now, what people want to see is God come in and just eliminate all of pain and suffering. If there's a dictator, Hitler, how can God let Hitler do what he did? People want God to come and just delete Hitler. That's what people want. But what they got instead, this is what they wanted for Jesus as well. They wanted a guy to come and fight and remove all these oppressors and all these things. But what they got is someone who came and suffered with them. Someone who came and was also being beaten on top. Someone who came and went to the cross. So we don't get it. We're like, that can't be the way God destroys suffering. That can't be the way God deals a blow to death and pain. It doesn't compute. But that is the way. Because think about it now. And I like that you've got a quizzical face on your. You don't quite get it.
No. I don't get it. But I. Are you saying that not just come in and suffer with? I believe that we're supposed to be people who come in and help.
Yes, but
in those ways,
but the way
in we're supposed to. Obviously, God doesn't want children to be starving in Africa. That's definitely not what He wants to be happening. But the fact that that's happening is because humans are causing that to happen, and other humans, we are not doing what we should be doing in order to help alleviate that. That's the way that I see it. I don't believe that we're doing enough to stop that from happening, right? Like, so that's what I mean.
I think we're agreeing. But the point there is, in First John, I think it says, like, this is how you know love, that no greater love than this, that a man should give up his life for his brother. At the end of the day, there are people in real suffering in this world. Real suffering.
Oh,
And
100%.
I think the height of love, the height of when you really know Jesus' heart, when you really connect with him, is when you are willing to give up your enjoyment and your joy and happiness to alleviate your brother and sister's pain. And I think that's the real heart of that we're going for. A lot of us, we are not, definitely we're willing to try and help and pull people, but we don't cross the threshold of being willing to do that at our own expense. As long as it doesn't impact on my ability to enjoy my soft life, my easy life, that sounds like foolishness. That sounds like lack of wisdom. How am I gonna give what I have and now I'll be poor with you? That's the mentality. I've heard people preach that is foolishness. No, you cannot now give everything you have and then you don't have anything. I think that is, you don't understand Jesus, because Jesus gave everything. His life he gave. And then we now look at the example that his disciples gave. They put everything in the pot. They put everything. They did not consider themselves as anything. They made themselves poor for others. I'm not trying to say everyone go sell your belongings, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just trying to say, like, if you really, this is where Jesus' statements, like, this is carrying a cross. You need to be, if you're to follow me, you need to be willing to die. That's what it means. You need to be willing to enter. It's not for the sake, and this is why I'm not talking about, just go and suffer. Just like, you know how in some traditions in ancient times, they used to actually whip themselves and like actually try and inflict pain on themselves as a way of,
Feeling that's
penance. And
yeah.
I think that's bollocks. I'm not talking about, sorry, pardon my French. I don't,
This guy.
for me, I don't think that's the right thing. Because he says, in the Beatitude, he says, blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of my name, for the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of this mission that Jesus has. It's not just suffering so that you can be religious and feel as if you're I'm disciplined, I'm doing the right thing. No, it's because there are people in God's kingdom that they themselves are suffering, and we are the agents of alleviating their suffering. That's the surprising way that we do this. That's the surprising way that we eliminate the suffering in the world. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, what it takes for us, if we really wanted to eliminate poverty right now, we can. But that would take the people that have the money being willing to give up some of that to the people that don't have the money. But right now, we could alleviate poverty around the world, not just in America, around the world. When we talk about there's not enough food in the whole world, there is enough food in the whole world. When we talk about there's not enough medicine, no, there is enough medicine in the whole world. It's just that there's some people that have and some people that don't have, and the people that have are not willing to give it up, because sometimes giving it up might put you in a tricky situation. I'm not trying to like dilute that. I'm not trying to say, you're just being selfish. Some people might need to actually sacrifice. That's what it takes. But that is the thing that creates this beautiful world that we're all trying to. That's the method that Jesus has given us. But do we as Christians internalize that? Do we recognize that as the means by which we destroy suffering, that we destroy pain? I don't think so. I think a lot of Christians expect that actually, no, if I'm a Christian, God's going to make my life easy. God's going to bless me. God's going to make me. That's what it sounds like. But they don't realize is God's going to bless the nations through you. Do you know what I'm saying? I've been talking for quite a while. Let me let you guys come in.
It's quite humbling, actually, this conversation, which is why I've not spoken much, because it really is one that makes you think and reflect about your life. And I'm just thinking, just wanted to speak to the people that may be feeling, because I'm feeling a bit of that way, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not really doing it. I'm not really living like a life that's okay. Maybe I am. Let me not deny what God has used me to do, but like just the way you've explained it now in terms of like sacrificing and like bearing the cross, have I really internalized that? It's a question for, it's a take home for me, because what does that look like in our day to day? What does that look like in our lives to be willing to be inconvenienced for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of Christ? And it's all good and well for us to sit here and talk about it on the podcast, but when it really comes down to it, like, are we walking the walk? I think it's a really humbling conversation.
It is.
And I just wanted to read 2 Timothy 3:12, which says, in fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. So like the Bible even says that you should expect this, you should prepare for this, like you will be persecuted. And then I'm thinking, okay, so if I'm not being persecuted, am I really living the godly life if I'm not experiencing the persecution? So yeah, just a lot of questions, not really contributions.
Well, I'm by the way, just for the avoidance of doubt, I'm in the same place. But like, I think what I've started to realize is, sometimes I used to think, okay, if God just puts me in that position, I'll just, but I actually think as a follower of Christ, you can't be passive. You can't just go into church, living your cushy life and say, if any situation comes up, I'll be there. You have to look into your community, look for where the pain is, look for where the suffering is, and go to them. Like, it's not a passive thing where you're just meant to sit down. And I think that's the problem. There's too many Christians who are passive about this. We're not actively searching out for those in need. We're not actively kind of pursuing this calling, if that makes sense. Like, okay, if you think, everyone in my neighborhood is happy, great, okay, then maybe it's time to look at the neighborhood next door. Don't just sit in your neighborhood and keep, God's blessed us, this is it. No, there's more stuff, there's suffering out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, go and find it and really be a human. Jesus showed us what it is to be a real human being. And I'm with you. Like, I feel like I have not taken up an active role in... And when you actually start doing that, particularly in our community, I think when you actually start asking people the right questions, we had when it shocks me, even when we as a team decide to have like heart-to-heart conversations and the things that we all share. And I'm like, rah, I've known you lot for this time and you guys have been going through this, going through that, and we didn't talk about it. We didn't, do you know what I'm saying? Because we all think that we're all great, we're all happy, we're all hunky-dory all the time, but people are going through things. And unless you go and you ask and you probe and you make yourself available and you give people the time, like even your pastors, they're going through things. Go and talk to them. Go and find out what's going on really underneath the surface. It's not just because someone's driving a nice car, coming through, they're happy, you think that there's nothing going on. A lot of people are suffering. And we are called to be the type of people that alleviate that. Yeah. So, and that is hard work. It is hard work. So that's kind of the thing you were saying, like, what's the thing that will make us suffer? That's the thing. Like, putting yourself in other people's problems, putting yourself in other people's situation. One time I was determined to help that homeless guy that I was determined. It was the most heartbreaking thing to see how much little help was available for this guy. I assumed that, I just need to take him to this council office. I just need to speak to this caseworker. I just need to do this and there will be a solution. But no, it was a really hard and difficult thing. And I ended up fizzling out. I ended up not doing anything. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's hard work. And once you enter that frame of mind, and then you now start reading the New Testament again, and you see all the verses where they say, endure through, pull through, understand that you will face opposition, understand that you'll do all these things. It starts to make sense because you're starting to live it. You're living it. I think it applies as much today in the Western democracies that we all live in as much as it did back then when they were being stoned and persecuted, I think it fully applies the same way. I think if you were actually doing this, you will feel the same heartache and heartbreak that they were feeling. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't think
We've
it's
got
any
a comment
different.
from Lloyd Burton. He says, hi guys, true followers of Christ will at some point face resistance from the world. Everyone who wants to live a godly, the scripture I mentioned earlier, live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted in some way. We are fortunate if we don't face some hardship as Christians. If not yet, harder times might come for us. Sobering words.
Or we keep running away from the hard times. That's what, when I was reflecting on it, like we are desperately trying to bad energy stay far away, make you stay far away. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we don't wanna enter into anything that will hash your vibe. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to enter into that situation. And I think that's the change that we all need to make, the mindset shift.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that with entering into hardship or, tough situations, you have to be discerning as well. Because it's not just every problem that you're like, I want to step in here. I want to be your savior. I want to come and save you. And the Holy Spirit said you have no business being there. Like
You'll be led by the
need
Spirit.
to,
Yes.
yeah, you
Led by
need
the
to
Yes.
be
You need to be
like,
led by
God,
the
where do
Spirit.
you want me to go?
Yes.
Where do you
Yes.
want me to be your
Yes.
hands and
Yes.
feet? And
Yes.
that's where you're going to be most
Yes.
effective,
Yes.
not places where you just think,
1,000%.
oh yeah, I'm going to
I'm just
insert
gonna go
myself.
there.
1,000%.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can see though
Happy you
that's
said
how, if we start to do that, that's when we start to become a witness to this country, to the countries like this where they don't see any need for God. When you actually go and speak to a person and enter into whatever their problem is. So that's why, like, when we start talking about this, and it sounded like we were going down a route of about the struggle to not sin and all that jazz. That's not even what I was talking about. Like, I'm saying to actually bring forth the kingdom, to live out the kingdom work. That's the bit that I think in all the Bible, none of them were struggling because of their sin. Like all those times of saying you have to hold fast, blah blah blah. It was never about because you're struggling not to do X Y Z. It was about because them people are opposing you, because you're trying to do this thing and it's not working out, because you guys are in this dire situation, because you guys, do you know what I'm saying? It was
Yeah.
those things. It was not about kind of, all of that is well and good and true. I'm not trying to go away from it, but that's not the work that Jesus is trying to get us to do. There's a mission.
Yeah.
There's an actual thing that we need to be doing in the world, right? And there's an impact we need to be having. Desperate need that people have in the world. If you enter into that situation, you will see persecution, you will see opposition, you will see suffering, you will see even some people when you're trying to help them, they will be the ones persecuting you. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's true.
Do you know what I'm saying? If you actually take that upon yourself as the job, all these things we're reading, they become real. They become your life. Anyways, we're massively over. But
That's good though.
yeah,
was
yeah,
so good.
yeah. I've preparing for this message and this talk is really like, wow, yeah, like a lot of reflection that I have to do, boy. Like
Me too.
for realsies.
think
For
all of us.
realsies.
Yeah.
Any final comments, final closing words? This is a bit too sober, guys. Say something positive. Bring us back.
It is positive.
It has
though.
to be sober though, because
Yeah.
we have to be honest with ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
It is what it is. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. This has been the Eden Ideal. Please follow us on Instagram, YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Yeah, on all platforms, really. We're not there yet. We're trying to have these conversations, motivate ourselves. We want to start getting real practical examples of how we're doing this and really start to live this out. The reason why we're doing this series specifically right now is to try and reinvigorate ourselves, because even we felt like we'd actually kind of became a bit more complacent and we started to lose the realities. That's why we're having these conversations. We want to do more. So if anybody has any ideas or any way to just get this mission, this thing that we're trying to do going, join us, come and talk to us about that. Like, I'd really like that. I want this to turn into a mission again, because that's what it's meant to be.
Yes.
All right, well, loves and kisses, hugs and kisses, all that good stuff.
And
Blessings.
love.
See you in 2 weeks, guys.
Love.
Bye.
Bye.